So it's a fourth floor build out of healthcare. It's a cancer center. The fourth floor is currently a shell space, so it's just building out the interiors. It's about 31,000 square feet, just a little over. What I guess what I struggle with is there's very dense ductwork in the space. So, and then all walls go to the deck. So those are two things that I really know could be, could make or break the project depending on how they're coordinated, right? Um, and then level 3 below the space we're working in is also occupied. And we have plumbing, that needs to happen in occupied spaces. So that'll be another challenging thing, I think, to coordinate, because the spaces have to be usable like the next day, right? So
Which way are you going about it? People have strong feelings about it either way, but doing your overhead duct and then the framers crawling around it, or framing all or most of the walls and then having the duct spooled to go in through the openings and within sections inside the room. Which one, or a mixture of both? Which one are you leaning towards?
a mixture of both. So there's a lot of pretty large duct work that I feel needs to go up before, or that I feel the walls, there are going to be priority walls that need to go up before some of this large duct work goes up. So so as you can see, there's a lot going on there. So based on just the HVAC drawings, I kind of marked up a rough HVAC path of the big stuff that I feel needs to go up after, we get priority walls in and topped out. So I marked in red what I think, some of the priority walls need to be on.
That's awesome. Can I do something so I just get out of my head real quick?
Yeah.
Can you zoom to a clear spot so I can draw? Like, just give me, yeah, right over there. Yeah, right there. That's enough. Or yeah, that's fine. So,
Okay.
actually, I'd like to see. This is great, by the way. By the way, just so everybody knows watching this, and you already know this, but like, I did this all the time as a super. Getting a fresh set of eyes is awesome. I'd love to see this to the right of the screen and then draw here. Can you go down a little bit for me?
Whoops. Sorry.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And then just zoom in right there. All right. So this is something that we've been dealing with a lot lately at LeanTakt, actually, is that when we look at something complex like this, it's like, whoa, what crazy. Um, and I'm just trying to explain it properly, but all this stuff. You know how in the model, yeah, you have your model for the floor, and you can click on the slicing feature and then basically just slice down and look at different layers of the model.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm imagining in my head, you know, slicing down on the overhead a foot, and I'm just making this up, and you would see like this duct right here, right? And then you slice down 2 feet, and then you see, okay, now there's this duct that we already showed here, but now there's like, you know, fire sprinkler, I guess, at that level or something. You know what I mean? Like, and then you slice down another foot, and you see this duct, but also you see the fire sprinkler. I know I'm taking a little bit, but just I'll come to a point here. And you see the fire sprinkler, but then you see the lower duct, right? So now you see this, and this, right? I'm imagining, just to simplify this, that you're like, okay, what's the first thing that gets installed? Okay, high bay or high ceiling or high duct, whatever you want. And that's your first activity, right? Then you go to your second, you know, activity, and it's like, okay, and actually let me do it in orange. This is fire sprinkler. Actually, there's a certain amount of fire sprinkler that has to go up. And then here's the branch lines for the rest of I'm just making this stuff up, right? And then um and then you just keep slicing down the interstitial space. You're just getting all of these activities, right? But then, like, let's say for instance, like in this one right here, let me come up here and I'm gonna go in black. This one, if you zoned it out, like let's say hypothetically you zoned it out and it was zone 1 and zone 2. I'm just making it up. So zone 1, you actually don't have this high bay stuff up here, right? But you do have it down here, right? Where it starts to cascade, and just imagine this whole thing is cascaded down. Well, let's say, all right, so we don't have it down below. I don't know why it duplicates like that when I'm doing it, but anyway, so you can just delete this from here. And then let's say, okay, your branch lines actually aren't on one, so you don't have this here, right? So you can just, you get a generic sequence from zone to zone, but you can start deleting that activity in zones where it doesn't happen. And what I'm saying is it's hard for humans to think, okay, it's up high, it's down low, it goes under, the fire sprinkler goes up. Instead of doing that, just start slicing the model down. What's first, what's second, what's third, what's fourth, what's fifth. But then people will be like, well, Jason, that works. That's a sequence. But not all of these high and low components happen in every zone. Well, then you just delete it from that zone and see what pattern emerges, and then you start to massage your production plan from there. I had to get that out of my head. Maybe that was a waste of your time. That it seems like you're already doing that a bit over here. Is that correct?
Yeah, to an extent, yeah, but I do appreciate the, yeah, you getting what you got out of your head there because it did help me thinking vertically instead of just horizontally working through the space, right?
Yep. No, go ahead. You go ahead and then I got something.
No, I see what you're saying. It does make sense to me.
My point is that these maps that you have here are the exact right thing to do. I just think you need more of them. Where, by the way, you know, you're better at this than I am. I'm just trying to give a second set of eyes. So, as a second set of eyes, this is your. This seems like it's your high stuff. Then,
Mm,
is there another drawing over here where then you look at like fire sprinkler and then another you just keep going and you create a
mm,
couple of these, then the drawings would, then you would be like, okay, I think this is the first thing, then this is the second thing, then this is the third, then you create your sequence, right?
okay.
And then
Okay, yeah.
on your tag plan, and then like I said, then you come in here and you say, all right, which one of these don't happen in these other zones, okay, blah blah blah. And then actually let me draw this out real quick. Then you're like, okay, well, actually, it looks like this. This is what the sequence actually looks like,
Mhm,
and you're like, okay, so you're talking to you'll see there's a gap here, there's a gap here, there's a gap here, right? And then you're like, okay, should I reorder and have this be my first? Basically, you're going to start to see patterns now that it's in that format for how you should flow through. But it's
mm,
okay if you don't have you see, our brains are trying to say in a zone, well, I do this first and this second. No, do a blanket across the floor in layers and then create your sequence from there and identify your gaps. So what my point is, I've wasted your time in saying this, but I think this is the exact right approach. Because let me see if I can save this. High duct, right? Then your at least your priority walls, if not your walls, right? And then, or no, maybe it's your high duct and fire sprinkler. Then it's your priority walls, right? Then it's maybe your ancillary mechanical duct. Then it's the rest of the MEP. Then it's bringing down the walls. Then it's blah blah blah, right? You're gonna create the sequence by observing what you're doing here. Because I'm being confusing.
I'm following you, though, I do appreciate that.
Okay, so keep going. I interrupt you.
No worries. Let's see. So really just wanted to look over kind of general flow and logistics, right? So I got big duct, the big blue circles just kind of represent big duct. Access is down here in the south of the building. So I want to flow north to south, generally speaking, work our way out of the building. Um, and then it's kind of divided into two sections. There's area A, which is the top half, and area B, which is the lower half. Um,
And what is this again? The yellow?
that's kind of what I think is a unique sequence of work or a unique density of work. It's a hot lab, so it's lead lined, cabinets and lead lined drywall and a spec CT and all those kinds of, all the things that come along with that. So that'll be a little more time consuming than of there's a lot of good sort of repeatable work throughout, as you can see, which I like. And I feel like we can optimize that to make good time uh, in those areas. Yeah, no, you go ahead. You share your thoughts. I was gonna just keep moving through it. So,
So the only two things that we always deal with is structural cabling, your low voltage, your heavy electrical. So like if you have rigid conduit coming out of the electrical room going overhead in an opposite direction, or med lab gas, right? Have you pulled those into this equation to see how they work?
I haven't, not in depth. There is med gas. Uh, it's only in the one location though. It's in the spec CT. So the rest of it. So there's one branch line, that runs from the middle. There's a big plumbing chase in the middle right here. This pipe shaft has med gas to it. We got to make the connection there and get it to the spec CT. So
So the med gas only goes from here down in. So you're good from. So that tells me that's a good zone boundary because you want to keep the med gas on one. So that passes that test. Heavy electrical, like let's say this was your electrical room, and you had structural cabling going back this direction. That would just be something to check there, and with structural cabling as well. But other than that, it looks great. And I mean, you already said it's shell, so your exteriors are already on, right?
that's right. Yep.
And you said this is your exit, so you naturally want to travel this way anyway. So I love it.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Okay.
And then so just I guess what I was thinking was like as a phase one for me in my brain, it makes sense to get big duct work up and priority walls done as their own kind of phase before I start breaking it down. Like that's one of my questions is, does it make sense to do a phase one, which is big duct and priority walls, before I go into, zones, like something like this, right? Because I can't really bake the big duct into, well, I suppose I could. I can't figure out how to bake the big duct into these types of zones, and these are just kind of loose zones so far. One of my first goes at it, but wanted to get your thoughts.
You're spot on. So I'm glad you double checked it with me, but you don't need me for anything because you already have all this figured out. Is what I've learned. Is that a phase is basically a path of zones. You already know that. So like it's basically your train tracks, right? And then the train that you make to go through that is your pace setting train of trades. So typically if people run through just one floor and they do the duct and the fire sprinkler and walls and blah 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 and everything all at once, then you have one phase with one series of zones, one train tracks, and then one train of trades that's your pace setter. And so what you're doing, which is brilliant, is you're saying your interstitial space, or at least your duct in your interstitial space, is its own path. So that means it's its own phase with its zones, right? And so it's flowing through there with its own train of trades. Maybe it's not very many wagons. And then your lower spot is going to have its own train of trades, which means its own phase with its own zones, right? And it's going to have a longer, faster train of trades underneath it. So what I'm hearing you say is that the duct in the interstitial space has its own phase with its own zones. Then below the duct, possibly including the ceilings and the walls, is its own phase with its own zones, which means you have tracks 1, tracks 2, train 1, train 2, and that's perfectly fine because if this one is going at 30 miles per hour or realized flow potential, this one could probably go 50 miles per hour, which means that this may have 2 zones, but this one down here, if I'm looking at you, has 6. That's exactly the way a lot of folks do it, and I think it's phenomenal, and I think you're on the right track. The only thing I would say with that is, like, let's say your mechanical has 2 zones like this, right? And then you're going faster on the floor below, and you have 6 zones, but the way these key out, you know what I'm saying? Like, if they're far apart, it doesn't matter. But if then you move this in, let me do it with a different color. Then if you move this in at a faster takt time, and when you overlap it, it doesn't matter because you can't start the damn thing anyway. How they key together is something to look at on your takt plan, is all I'm saying. Like if you end up with a situation where it's like duct work area 1, and hell, we couldn't start the finishes anyway, and so then it starts to go faster on your subsequent finishes underneath, then you're perfect. So this it won't work. This it would work. This it would work. Just look at how they key together from a pacing standpoint, and that's all you got to worry about. Did that answer? Did I screw that up?
No, that does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay. Well, I think you're spot on. Everything about this looks perfect to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Do you have time for a few quick questions? I just typed out some questions.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll make them quick. So yeah, we talked about the big duct and priority wall. What we just talked about is question number one, essentially. Based on what you're seeing, well, you've already answered this one too. Looks like a decent start in terms of zone sizes potentially. I thought,
But real quick, tell me, what is the zone size for the duct? And then when you get to the smaller ones, just the square footage or square meters?
well, I don't know the exact zone size for the duct right now. So it's essentially, split in half. Yeah, it's
Eight.
almost 32,000 feet. So 17,000 feet apiece.
That's great. And then the square footage for the other ones is if it's 6 divided by 36, what's that? That's 6,000 square foot.
Yep, roughly. Yep.
Those seem like perfect zone sizes. The only thing is, can you show me the smaller? Yeah. The only thing is for the med. Ooh, sorry.
Yep.
The med gas, you might kind of need. Oh, see, can you zoom out a bit better?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The only thing is for the med. Yeah, pause right there. For the med gas, you might have to make this zone 4. That's the only thing you might have to look at because you can't. Yeah, you can't. You know what you know about med gas or lab gas. Like you can't close one area till the whole thing's tested. So it's just something to look at. I'm not saying it's impossible, but
Yeah.
so going back to your questions, the answer is yes and yes.
Important questions to follow. Let's see. This job starts in about a month. If you were running this job, what would you do from now until boots on the ground? And what would you do, say, the first 2 to 3 weeks after boots are on the ground?
I think my answer is the same. I would be disciplined like crazy with pre-construction meetings. Yeah, the answer for me is the same. It's the pull plan, the pre-con meetings, and look ahead planning. I would literally like just make sure that everybody's queued up, ready to go 100%. On a floor like this, the things that will get you in trouble, it's definitely, and you already mentioned it, is having a coordinated plan. Is the space down below occupied?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Is that mapping out the occupied space below 100%?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gotcha.
How would I simplify this? I would create a map of that as well. Maybe you already have that, but I would create the map below and actually do a pre-con meeting with the folks down below. And you can't spend enough time with the office spaces down below.
Okay.
Informing them, talking to them, what will this hit? The ICRA, the ISLM, how do I clean up your spaces? Who's my point of contact? Here's a map. Here's our tentative schedule. What else ties into it? All that. That's where I would be spending. That is my single answer. I would be spending all my time pre-con meetings with lower floor and trades. Like that is where I would be spending all my time.
Awesome. Yeah. I like it. I appreciate it.
What would I absolutely not do here? Break a pipe. Yeah, I know that sounds silly, but like you're gonna want to have area boards. You already know all this stuff, but you asked me. Is it area boards with shut-off valve locations? Understand every single system. Make sure that any way that where water could get down below, that we're covered there. And I would also start digging into commissioning. You're an expert at this, but the commissioning of this, what usually with buildings like this, nobody knows what systems have to shut down the rest of the building to get our systems commissioned. And it's not mapped out, and the commissioning agents are like, oh, we can deal with that later and blah, blah. No, 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 no. This job, no matter how good the superintendent is already 6 weeks behind on figuring out shutdowns and commissioning. I would map out the first pull plan on a job like this. I would do is literally the how do I bring systems online? How do I bring heat? How do I tie into heating, hot water, chilled water? How do I tie into the med gas? How do I or lab gas or whatever it is? How do I tie into the electrical? How do I tie into the comm system? How do I tie into the sewer? How do I tie into the duct? Do I have to actually shut the air handlers down? How all of those things getting detailed answers, because then it's going to be like, oh, well, you in order to get the duct online, you're going to have to shut us down for a day. We didn't plan on that, blah, blah. Now it's like you got a 6-week delay. So pre-con meetings, and in my spare time, I would map out commissioning like an expert and figure out tie-ins, points of connection, and shutdowns. Yeah. You already know all this.
No, that's good stuff. That's really good. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, the two things would be treat the lower floor like you are Japanese. And then I would say shutdowns and commissioning like you are already late. That's my advice.
Awesome.
You already knew all that, but I appreciate you letting me feel important.
I'll tell you a secret. I did not know all that, but I knew some of it. It's all up here, but having somebody like you to bounce it off of really helps. So good deal.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks, Jason. Take care. See ya.